Hello and welcome to Terrastorian. I'm Uriel, and today we bring you the next episode of Operator Lorelight, in which we tell the stories of operators in a comprehensive, easy-to-understand format. Or at least, we would normally, but today we're covering the Yap Queen herself, Kal'tsit, as well as her death-born companion, Mon3tr. As such, this will likely be one of the longest Lorelight videos we could do. No complaints though. Let's jump right in. Kal'tsit, or more accurately, Ama 10, as she was originally named, was a creation of Oracle and Priestess during the age of the Precursors 13,000 years ago. It's unknown what the exact process to create her was, but we do know that she appears like any other Terran and has red blood. What is unique, however, is her spine, which supports a secondary symbiotic life form that she calls Mon3tr. Mon3tr is a black and green, spiny creature with a metallic shell that follows Kal'tsit's directions to the letter, often acting as her primary method of combat. Normally folded up into a small crystal shell that nestles against Kal'tsit's spine, it can unfold itself near instantly to defend its host. It's capable not only of immense strength, but also has the ability to fire energy beams if the situation demands it. This is not used often, suggesting that it drains Mon3tr's stamina quickly. The relationship between Kal'tsit and Mon3tr goes even deeper, however, with them being intertwined at their very creation. If Mon3tr were to ever perish in battle, Kal'tsit can remanifest it from her own body. More interesting though, is that if Kal'tsit herself were to ever die, then Mon3tr goes through a metamorphosis, slowly taking a humanoid form reminiscent of Kal'tsit herself and inheriting her memories, essentially becoming a new Kal'tsit. Thanks to this unique mechanism to survival, Kal'tsit is effectively immortal, not only being ageless, but unable to be permanently killed. When Oracle went into the sarcophagus to sleep the millennia away, they gave Kal'tsit the name we know today, along with 2 missions to achieve in the years to come. Firstly, to watch over the spread of Originium. Second, to find her own meaning in life while watching over and protecting the life on the planet. She would diligently perform her missions for thousands of years, but after seeing the rise of TCAS, ancients and elders, as well as the civilizations and wars that followed, she would find that her original goals would begin to conflict with each other. The people of Terra would use Originium as a tool to destroy each other, forcing her to take action and guide the budding civilizations from the path of self-destruction. From the ancient history before the current Terran calendar, it is unknown what exactly Kal'tsit was doing. And we must skip ahead to the year 898, nearly 11,000 years after Oripathy first appeared. She led a joint alliance of Victoria, Lithanian, and Gaul in the Kasdalian Crusade. Her mission not only to put an end to the long-standing threat that the city of Kasdal presented to all others, but also to reclaim the predecessor's artifact DWDB-221E, better known as Civilite Eterna. While she would lead the joint army to success in destroying the city and killing the current Sarkas Lord of Fiends, Elise, she was killed in action by Teresis before she could claim the crown. In 899, she fully regenerates from her death and finds herself with a new option, befriending the current Lord of Fiends, Teresa. This seemingly happens quickly, as she shares her own memories with Teresa, allowing the both of them to understand each other and begin planning a path forward. Through this new friendship, Kal'tsit and Teresa formed Babel in the year 1031, a multifaceted organization focused on mending the relationship between Kasdal and its neighboring nations, while providing the Sarkas with education and infrastructure they hadn't had access to previously. During Babel's operations, Kal'tsit goes on multiple operations around Terra. In 1070, she joins an Ursus science group known as the Boris Group, a mining operation that had uncovered a precursor sarcophagus. She joined knowing this could bring about a massive shift in the political powers of Ursus and led the team in uncovering its secrets. In 1075, she joins a Colombian rescue mission in Sargon, where she meets Passenger as a young kid. And in 1077, the Boris group studying the sarcophagus drew the attention of the military, and the Ursus Fourth Army deployed the secret police led by Grand Duke Vanya to investigate and ultimately massacre every scientist involved in the study. She resolves to get revenge, spending the next 3 years planning out an assassination on the Duke, which she then successfully pulls off in 1080. This paints a target on her back, resulting in an Emperor's blade to be sent after her. In 1083, she hires a team in Rim Billiton to excavate and refit the Rhodes Island ship to work as a land ship, which is completed a year later and quickly becomes the base of operations for Babel. This proves to be just in time, as in 1086, Babel is forced to withdraw from Kasdel after growing political unrest in the city. This draws to a head as full-on civil war breaks out between Teresa's Babel and Teresa's military commission. The war lasts for 8 years, with a large amount of Babel's success coming down to the awakening of Oracle, known as the Doctor by this time, providing an immense amount of strategic leadership to both the war effort and the research being performed by Teresa and Kal'tsit on Originium. The war comes to a devastating conclusion, however, when Doctor betrays Teresa in an agreement with Teresa's to allow assassins into Rhodes Island. Kal'tsit doesn't bear witness to the events that transpired, but is able to piece together the events from the security logs left behind. In the month that followed the end of the war in 1094, she takes Doctor to Chernobog to lay them within the sarcophagus that's been locked away after the Boris Group massacre. She also forms the Special Warrant Extermination and Elimination Protocol, or SWEEP, with Ascalon, one of the Sarkas loyal to Teresa and its leader. The primary goal of SWEEP being to find and eliminate insider threats within Babel's reorganized child company, Rhodes Island. Named after the landship itself, Rhodes Island was essentially just Babel in terms of operation personnel. However, their goal had shifted away from the Sarkas officially, and instead presented itself as a pharmaceutical company focused on the study and development of an horrific cure. Over the course of the next 3 years, Kal'tsit leads the company to eventually hand the reins to Teresa's chosen inheritor of Civilite Eterna, Amia. With Rhodes Island returning to Chernobog to recover the Doctor from the sarcophagus, Kal'tsit entrusts multiple elite operators with Amia to perform this mission while she begins talk with Wei Yanwu to negotiate an operational contract with the nearby city of Lungmen. While the talks go well, she quickly shows her distrust in the Doctor, but is also unwilling to reveal why to them while they are missing their memories, not knowing what the truth may cause the Doctor to do. During the conflict that follows in Lungmen with the terrorist organization Reunion, she initially takes a leadership role, commanding and performing communications control for the ground squads. She joins the front lines, however, once she sees the arts in use by some of the Reunion leaders and the impact they have on returning squads. In the city, she defeats numerous Reunion mobs attempting to find a foothold and comes across Crownslayer, recognizing the Reunion leader as Ludmila, the daughter of Ilya, one of the sarcophagus researchers Kal'tsit had worked with in Chernobog years earlier. After a small skirmish, she lets Crownslayer go free, knowing that Crownslayer wouldn't stick with Reunion long, knowing the information she had provided in their skirmish. Soon after, she returns to the offices of Wei Yanwu to inform him of the imminent collision course that Tallulah had set Chernobog on with Lungmen, as well as the political ramifications that would follow between Ursus and Yan. With this knowledge, she maneuvers Wei to accept a deal for Rhodes Island to handle the situation, relieving him from the political burden that would come from trying to stop Tallulah himself. The deal came with an additional price from him, however, the body of Tallulah's father, Edward Artorius, and more importantly, the missing key needed to access the mausoleum of kings that he kept on him. Cal joins the operation to infiltrate Chernobog, shut down the core, and defeat Tallulah. During the operation, the squads face Boldrokasti, better known as Patriot, the last pure-blooded Wendigo. Upon their meeting, Patriot recognizes Kal'tsit, comments on her lack of aging, and is defeated in battle after a long discussion between them that many around them fail to understand. During and after his defeat, Kal'tsit explains the connection between Sarkas and Originium, an explanation that references the actions of the first Lord of Fiends, Farchaser, 11,000 years prior. After this battle, the team splits up, Kal'tsit and Doctor heading deeper into the city core to shut down the power source of the city itself, the sarcophagus. A path that is interrupted by not just a disgruntled W, who is also thrown against a wall by Monster, but also by a mutated Mephisto who had attempted to use the sarcophagus on himself. While disconnecting the sarcophagus from the city power, she finally provides the Doctor with small pieces of information on the nature of the machine, though she still doesn't trust them enough to fully reveal everything they have forgotten. Soon after resolving the Chernobog crisis, Kal'tsit sets the next target for Rhodes Island, one she was preparing for from the beginning: Victoria. During the travel, Kal'tsit is confronted on the Rhode Island's deck by Nasalem, the king of the Naxera, who demanded to know about the final moments of Patriot. Their conversation also reveals that he has seen her twice before, commenting that the first time of which she looked quite different. It can be surmised that this was a previous body of hers. Soon after, Kal'tsit provides the Doctor with the information on the past of Babel, Teresa, and Civilite Eterna, knowing they will be unprepared otherwise for the coming confrontation with the military commission. She then departs Rhodes to meet with Heidi, Kal'tsit's private messenger, and a spy who has been relaying the events unfolding in Londinium. W reappears with Heidi, who reveals to Kal'tsit that Teresa has returned and is in Londinium with her brother. After providing Siege with a key retrieved from Edward Artorius, Kal'tsit is gravely injured by Teresa's after she throws herself and Monster in between him and Amia and Doctor both. This attempt barely succeeds in allowing the both of them to escape. Kal'tsit survives barely after Shining and Ascalon manage to recover her body and bring it back to a safe house. Days later, Kal'tsit awakes from her near-death experience to W standing by her. She explains her past and history with Kazdel and the Sarkas in a moment of emotional recollection. She explains the origin of the name Sarkas, an arrogant abbreviation given to them by their enemies. She later meets back up with Closure to get a briefing on the situation in Londinium. While still recovering, the Confessarius, the brother of Shining, appears at the safe house to kidnap Nightingale. Kal'tsit and Monster were still too weak from their encounter with Teresa's to properly defend, and the Confessarius succeed in their abduction. As the Londinium crisis picks up and a battlefield starts to truly take form under the unfolding catastrophe, Kal and the Rhodes Island operators on board the Lifeboat crash land in a canyon near the Londinium war zone. After surveying the Redmane Mountains, she concludes that the Confessarius are using the blood of a pure-blooded TCAS with the Shard, a massive building in Londinium, creating the catastrophe to summon Amnanam, one of the first Originium crystals. In planning their next actions, Kal'tsit leads the Doctor, Amia, and Logos onto the ritual site into the heart of the catastrophe. Their initial arrival at the ritual site revealed it to be a trap, with Kal'tsit being confronted by a fragment of the Damatsi cluster. Instead of attempting to fight, they parley in philosophy on their own immortality. Damatsi initially doesn't view Kal'tsit as all that different from themselves, as while she is immortal, her personality and body are different with each reincarnation. With all the time that passed, they do not understand what keeps Kal'tsit so set on her goals through all of her bodies and imperfect memories. Kal'tsit responds with the name, her name, the name given to her by Oracle, and the name called out by the people she wishes to protect. She quickly dispatches the Damatsi and returns to Doctor and Amia. 3 hours later, Siege successfully activates the Sigh of Kings on the battleship of the Duke of Castor, stabilizing the catastrophe long enough for the Victorian army to turn the tides against the military commission. Nasalem turns his attention away from the battle to focus on Kal'tsit's squad trying to destroy the blood of TCAS, stopped only by Logos to allow the rest to continue their path to the real ritual site. Kal'tsit realizes then the goal of the Confessarius. That, with the use of the first Originium, they'll be able to command the Sarkas population more thoroughly than even the Lord bearing the Black Crown. In the fight to destroy the ritual altar, the followers successfully defeat Quisar-Tushtai, and given with his failure, give Amia the chance she needs to destroy the altar, only for Salus of the Confessarius to use her own death as a sacrifice to finalize the ceremony of the ritual anyway. Within minutes, Amnanam begins to manifest in the skies above the shard. After meeting with W, the team realize that the manifested Teresa intends to access Amnanam directly via Gastral, the flying Kasdalian warship controlled by a Revenant and used by the military commission. They utilize the lifebone to board the airship and manage to destroy the core of the Revenant controlling it, but it is too late, as Teresa successfully activates Amnanam and merges the ship with everyone on it with the first Originium to access the simulated universe within. While trying to move through the myriad souls of Sarkas, Cal has to teach the Doctor how to manipulate Originium, providing them the means to chase down Teresa. Upon reaching the revived Lord, Teresa informs them of her goal to change the very nature of Originium's rules, much like Farchaser did originally. After the battle and Teresa's true death, they escape the AU with the use of the manifestation arts the Doctor and Amia learned, meeting back with the Londinium resistance forces and retrieve the first Originium from Teresa soon after. Kal'tsit appears to assist the Abyssal Hunters in the aftermath of their actions in Sal Viento. She then accepts questioning by the Inquisition, only to be released soon after. In the year after, 1099, she heads to the city of Trimounts in Colombia in light of the disappearance of Kristen Wright, tipped off to her by Tin Man of the Mainlander Association. A massive piece of debris crashes in a chemical plant, causing her to meet with Saria, who's already on site trying to piece together what Kristen is doing and where she is. They're interrupted by a troop of empty power armor, who they fend off, but not before the data about Kristen gets destroyed. The duo split up, and Kal'tsit meets up with the Doctor at the crash site, at which point she determines what is providing the power needed for the Ark-1 project, and she leads the Doctor to the Hall of Stasis, a large facility filled with sarcophagi, watched over by the Preserver, a mental copy of a man named Trevor Friston from the age of the Precursors. He reveals that he is the one helping Kristen, and reveals much to the Doctor of the history leading upon their collapse, along with the detail that Priestess had placed a restriction on Kal'tsit at her creation, preventing her from revealing the inner details of Originium and its creation. He then requests to have his memory of the last 13,000 years to be erased, so he may die as he was. A copy of his mind afterwards is taken by Holhiak, who trades it for her freedom. At the end of the century, 1100, she accompanies Saint Carmen to the Iberian Inquisition to Grand Pharaoh, where he requests her assistance with the Seaborn threat, before informing her of the last remaining eye of Iberia, the lighthouse along the coast that would allow them to re-establish a connection with the remaining sea-bearing vessels and communications with Aegir. Meeting up with Gladia, she learns that Grand Pharaoh had been infiltrated by the Church of the Deep, and begins eliminating the Seaborn in the city, while Gladia looked for her fellow hunters. After getting the situation under control for the Inquisition, they head to the lighthouse to clean it of the Seaborn nest that prevented its use, successfully repairing damages thanks to Jordi Fontanarossa, later known as Operator Lumen. The lighthouse revealed the lost ship, the Stultiferus Navis. The resulting battle sinks the vessel, but the Abyssal Hunters and Lumen recovered the Aegirian research that had been kept on it. A couple of months later, the Doctor arrives in the city, who accompanies the Hunters, Irene, Lumen, and Kal'tsit to Miliarium, an Aegirian city who had contacted the Inquisitors in Grand Pharaoh soon after the lighthouse was repaired. The city's leader, Clementia, explained the waterway program, while the Abyssal Hunters were inspected for corruption. The proceedings were interrupted by a Seaborn attack on the city. Running to join the fray, they encountered an unusual Seaborn, Martis, whose original identity was that of one of the leading Aegirian researchers in Aegirian history. He had found a Sharmila within a predecessor facility in the ocean, who showed him the fall of their civilization and assimilated him willingly so he may lead the seaborne assimilation for the sake of survival. Kal'tsit rebuked Mon3tr's way of thinking, noting that survival without civilization is meaningless. After the seaborne threat was defeated, Kal'tsit met with Consul Horatia of the Aegarian Academy of Sciences, with whom she affirmed that the land nations could not accept help from Aegir easily, thanks to the complicated political issues of the other nations. She does not deny them entirely, however, resolving instead to help them create lines of communication that could lead to a path forward. As Rhodes Island starts to experience malfunctions in the PRTS control system, Kal'tsit reveals that deep within the landship lies what she calls the Abyss, an unmapped area of the ship that contains the PRTS server. She also concludes that the events in Londinium with Amnanam likely awoke Priestess, who took control of the system. In order to breach the Abyss, Kal'tsit and Mon3tr fight through hordes of enemies manifested from originium growing throughout the ship in order to reach the lower decks. There, she climbs into the sarcophagus that Oracle once awoke from in an attempt to connect to PRTS directly. Inside, she finds a digital copy of Oracle's memory, who informs her to sever her connection to Mon3tr in order to access PRTS and take control from Priestess. She succeeds and is able to contact Rydian to begin the operation in the Abyss. The Doctor rescues Kal'tsit as they begin their attack, successfully destroying PRTS and put a stop to the attack. Their success is short-lived, however, when Priestess teleports the Doctor, Priestess, and Amia outside to the deck. There, she reveals herself, manipulating Originium itself as an extension of herself. She initially tries to convince the Doctor to rejoin her as her partner, but when they refuse, she sees it as an act of betrayal. Kal'tsit, however, is relieved and reveals that with her takeover of the PRTS, she was able to render Priestess temporarily mortal as long as she was on Terra. She outsmarts their attempts to kill her, however, and after determining Kal'tsit Ama 10 a failure, she proceeds to rapidly expand the Originium infection on her shoulder, assimilating her. Mon3tr rapidly falls into despair and proceeds to form a cocoon that after a month's time hatches into a new human form. While she has retained many memories from Kal'tsit, the disconnection made before her death has rendered her an incomplete resurrection. She does, however, know of a means to possibly resurrect Kal'tsit completely, but it would require another functional sarcophagus, the one of which that remains known to them, the one in Chernobog. Before heading to Ursus, Mon3tr joins Doctor in Laterano during the Second Summit of Nations toward the end of 1101. She intends to use her inherited memories of Kal'tsit to attempt to stop Priestess from sabotaging the law, but is only able to temporarily interrupt her before Priestess traps both her and the Doctor in a protocol space which Mon3tr has to decrypt to escape. To this day, we do not know if Kal'tsit ever gets saved, but we do see what appears to be Mon3tr, or perhaps a later reincarnation in Arknights Enfield. On Talos 2, she remains to be going by the name of M3, where she helps the Endmen awake and performs medical examinations after long periods of hibernation. When not needed for medical affairs, she travels Talos 2 for Enfield Industries as an elite operator and is one of the key executors of the Zeroth Directive. And that is where we come to the end of everything we know about Kal'tsit and Mon3tr. The story is not over, however, and between the future chapters of Arknights Act 3 and Enfield's eventual reveals of the past, we believe there is still so much more to eventually tell. Perhaps in the future, we will have another update to make here. Until then, we hope you liked this video, and if you enjoyed this, please let us know what Operator Lorelight you'd like to see next in the comments. We hope to see you in the next one.